Action.
Okay, so you can have one of 5 ventilators. I'm only Rakia showing you the 840. It is the same process on all of them of what we were looking for. Okay. All right. So you'll get your sheet. We'll hand you guys your PE sheet. We will give you guys a rate, an ideal body weight, a rate, an inspiratory time. Volume is 5 to 8. We'll give you a flow pattern and type of humidity. You guys have to calculate out your tidal volume, flow, total cycle time, E time, I to E, and then your spontaneous tidal volume. Okay? You have to do all those calculations, and then based off of those calculations is how you will set up your vent. Do you have one of these? I'll give you this, so you can work on these right here. Okay? Because this is kind of what your question was earlier, right? Okay. So you can take this when we're done. All right, so we'll give you guys this sheet, okay? And then it tells you right here, you're gonna set your patient up in SIMV with spontaneous, unsupported breaths, okay? All right, so we're gonna hit same patient, accept, vent, SIMV. We're going to go volume ventilation. We're going to do no support, continue, okay? We'll give you guys a lower rate, so we'll start with 8. I did my tidal volume calculation. We'll say I got between 300 and 400, so I'm going to set this at 350. I did my flow calculation. It came out to be 45. My flow trigger, it says appropriate for an adult, so I have it set at 3, FiO2 21%. My PEEP I want set to 3. Okay? I hit accept. Excuse me, Ronnie. I go ahead, put my patient on the vent. Thank you. So from here, all we're really looking at is that if your initial calculations are done, you put in your settings appropriately based off of your calculations that you did. You put in your apnea. For SIMV, because typically you mimic your apnea settings to what your patient's on. Well, if you have a rate of 8 or 6, you're not going to want that as an apnea setting. So I told the group this morning, normal respiratory rate is 10 to 20. So as long as you put that within an acceptable range for a normal respiratory rate, that will be acceptable. Match your tidal volume. And then match your flow, and that will be acceptable for your apnea. Alarms, you guys should know by now the percentages for where you have to set your alarms, okay? So you put all that in, you call us over, and what we're gonna look at is we're gonna make sure your apnea is done correctly. We're gonna make sure your alarms are put in correctly. We're gonna ask you guys, do you guys have any leaks? A couple ways you can look is to see if, so when it says spontaneous here, or right now it says assisted, all those values go with that breath. When it says spontaneous, all those values go with that breath. So when you look at your assisted breath, 350 tidal volume is being delivered. If you're seeing less than that being brought back, you might be able to suspect a leak, okay? That's one way to determine a leak. Another way is to go to setup, go to your volume time curve, hit continue, and then look for that return to baseline. So we're not, sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. So that necessarily wouldn't be a leak. That could be air trapping, but it's mechanical. So, but those are what we want to know is what ways you determine if there's a leak or not. Okay? Volume loss, volume pressure, volume time curve. Okay? Those are the ways to determine leaks. You can evaluate your graphics, go to plot setup on here, mess with everything. I prefer like that. Okay? From there we'll say, okay, go ahead, put your patient, add some tube go ahead, put your patient in tube compensation, okay? So go here, go to spontaneous, go ahead, add some tube compensation. We'll give you guys a tube size, and we'll give you a tube, ET, tuber endotracheal tube, 8.0, that looks good. So we'll hit accept. And just for the sake of numbers, I would say you calculate out your spontaneous tidal volume, and you're supposed to have 450 to 550, okay? We look at this, I would say, is this good enough for your patient? You would say, no, because my target tidal volume is 450 to 550, I'm only getting 395. I'd say, okay, well, what could you do in this situation? Put them on pressure support, okay? You cannot add any more support in tube compensation because we are already at our max. Okay, so the next step from here, when you're maxed out on your tube compensation, and what we will ask you is, explain how tube compensation works. Is it appropriate for this patient? No, it's not. And then explain when you would decrease tube compensation. Why would you decrease tube compensation? Why would you want to take any support away from airway resistance? You wouldn't. Okay. So in this case, I would say, okay, we'll say go ahead, put your patient on pressure support of 10. Okay? Let's go to vent setup, spontaneous, pressure support, continue. Go ahead, put the pressure support of 10 on. And then give it a second. So now a couple things. Now, what I recommend doing is setting your e-sense and setting your rise time before you set your alarms, okay? Because based on what you have going, that's going to change, okay? Now, I'm going to put myself on the ventilator so you guys can see a very accurate e-sense and rise time and when you want to change it, okay?
I always adjust rise time first.
Yes. Add this in the pressure support. That's a smidge too much for me. Alright, so for rise time, I always recommend starting with like 100%, okay? Alright, so if you guys come here and look, you can see there's a spike here at the beginning of the breath. Can you guys see this? It's not on every single one, but right here. Can you see it? I kind of didn't make it happen there, but that's like, that's telling me that my rise time is too much. Okay? That was too much. That was too much. That was too much.
Sugar, COVID.
Right. You guys see it?
Yeah, that's indicating it's too much, right?
It's too much. That's why this is so wacky. But that spike, it's telling you it's too fast.
So you would just keep lowering it until it's a straight line?
Very cool. No.
This is so Amber.
What?
Oh.
Alright. Now do you guys see like that big giant scoop there? Because now I'm really having to pull to get to that peak pressure. I'm really pulling, so that's a scoop. Okay, it didn't freeze. But did you guys see that scoop? Okay.
At first it was after. Now
We're
it was
only
before.
looking at before. We're only looking at before.
Okay.
Okay?
Much better.
I should put this.
Alright. So you guys see the difference there of not enough, way too much, and then a nice, pretty. So when it's going too fast, you're gonna see a spike. When it's going too slow, you're gonna see that scoop. When it's nice and comfortable for your patient, you're gonna see that nice square
Nice angle.
at the front of the waveform. That's rise time. Now sens controls the end of the breath, okay? That determines when your breath should end, all right? With your COPD patients, you typically, it's usually set higher, but if you see a spike at the end of the breath, that tells you that your patient's trying to exhale, so you may want to increase it. If you see a scoop at the end of the breath, that may say your patient's still trying to breathe in, so you may want to decrease it, okay?
And when you were talking about rise time, each event is different.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say we want to make the rise time more aggressive, on this one on the 980 you increase the percentage. On the Drager you decrease the slope. Or, I'm sorry, increase the slope because it's measured in time. So we want to take a longer time for it to get to. We just got to use the right terminology.
It's
You'll never be okay with her. The draft should be on.
All right. Let's focus on e-sense. End of the breath. Let's see if my lungs can handle this. All right. So a couple of things about what you're seeing is one, I'm not getting any volume. Two, my breath is not even happening. It's just ending, ending, ending. So that tells you that your rise time is too aggressive. It's set too high, okay? This is gonna be a tough one. Okay, let's. That spike means the patient's trying to end the breath. Okay? So that means that our e-sense is set too low. Let's go to half. I gotta trigger it. I'm forgetting. This is hard.
There you go. Better. Yep. Coming back.
That's the patient ending it. That's it going on its own. You guys see the difference?
Yeah.
So this is the patient pushing against it. This is it just flowing on its own. So this would be acceptable. That would be your rise time is set. Your e-sense is set too aggressively.
So you have to adjust both, right?
Always, yep. Adjust your rise time first. Adjust your e-sense second.
Okay.
And then once you have both those set, evaluate your tidal volume and then set your alarms. Okay? And then
Do mine all done later.
Alright. So we'll ask you guys to explain to us why you set the rise time at what percentage you set it at. We'll ask you to set your e-sense and sort of cycle off why you set it that. And then we'll ask you some questions. Okay?
So after doing the iTime and eSense, we are still gonna set the settings to different settings.
Amber Clark out.